Joining me this morning from Wisconsin, another great individual from Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, Will Education Counsel, Corey Brewer. Good morning, Corey. How are you?
Good morning. Doing great. How are you?
Very good. Well, you heard me talking about how thrilled I am. It's Friday. Oh, gosh, it's, I'm sure, as a mom of lots of young kids, that's you. I don't have young kids anymore, but I'm sure that you, maybe the weekend is bittersweet because I'm sure your weeks aren't any less hectic than, your weekends aren't any less hectic than your weekdays.
That's for sure. Yes, we have a lot going on, and I heard you talking about what a difference the sun makes, and it's true.
Indeed, it is. So I'm holding out hope that we'll see it today. But so, oh gosh, not a sunny topic. However, I think it's worth talking about. Although I'm thrilled that Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, your organization, is willing to push back against Jill Underly's DPI here in Wisconsin, and how you have instructed, or how Will has instructed local school boards to respond to what Underly is, I guess I would say, in defiance of the Trump administration.
Yes, I think our local educational agencies, which here in Wisconsin are our public school districts and independent charter schools, unfortunately, they're being failed by our state leadership right now because Dr. Underly, our state superintendent, the DPI, they've taken the position that they don't need to fill out the certification form that the Trump administration is requesting, and we can talk a little bit about exactly what that is. But as a result, they're putting at risk hundreds of millions of dollars of federal funds for Wisconsin students.
So talk about specifically what it is, and I mean, what on earth, I mean, other than defiance of the Trump administration, what precisely is her objective? I mean, does she think she's going to win a standoff with Donald Trump?
I can't speak, obviously, to what the goal is here. I don't know what the end game is here. To me, it seems entirely political, but it's being done at a huge risk, and it's something that is going to, if these federal funds are withheld, going to hurt Wisconsin students. And not only that, but the money's going to have to be made up for in some way, so it could be felt by Wisconsin taxpayers too. But what this is I'll just take a step back here and zoom out. As a condition of receiving federal dollars, the recipients of those dollars, they need to assure compliance with federal laws. And one of those federal laws is Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Essentially, what this does is prohibit racial discrimination. And with the Students for Fair Admission versus Harvard United States Supreme Court case a few years ago, we now know that race may not be used in decision-making. It may not be used as a stereotype. Our highest court really made clear that these types of laws and policies, they need to be colorblind, and we need to treat individuals as individuals and not based on race. So what the Trump administration has done then is they issued this legal reminder to state educational agencies like DPI, which Jill Underly leads, and they've said, here is the legal reminder. Look at your obligations under Title VI. Look at what this Students for Fair Admission versus Harvard case said. You can't be discriminating based on race. And by the way, a lot of these DEI initiatives and programs that we're seeing, they're racially discriminatory, so you can't be doing that. And please sign this certification form that says you're not. And the assurance with this federal civil rights law as a condition of receiving the money, it's not new. This is not a new requirement. This is not some confusing or secret or vague requirement. It's right there in the form, and we think it's pretty straightforward, and it's a legal requirement that they be in compliance.
So I know that this was just, you just issued this warning to DPI yesterday. Wait, no, I think that you set a deadline for yesterday, or the U.S. Department of Education set a deadline for DPI, which they violated, obviously. Um, any, and I guess I'm wondering, let's get creative here. What type of, in addition to withdrawing funding from the state of Wisconsin, are there any other actions that the Trump administration can take legally?
Yeah, we sent this letter to DPI directly on Tuesday, just really urging them to reverse course and kind of outlining why this is already required law and the risk is not worth taking. The risk of losing these hundreds of millions of dollars is not worth it. Um, and if the federal government, they have authority to withhold these funds, if they start that process, it often includes an investigation, seeking to obtain compliance. But the Trump administration, they have really shown that they are not going to put up with racial discrimination, not only in K-12, but beyond. And they've been very outspoken about that. And I think they've been aggressive in trying to ensure that our laws and policies in this country are colorblind, because as we saw with the executive order on student discipline a few days ago, they need to walk back some of these actions by previous administrations that are encouraging racial balancing, racial quotas, treating students different based on race. So they're really taking some actions here, and I think they're very positive, good, significant actions to ensure that students, individuals, are treated as individuals, and not on, we've talked about this before. We've seen this in Wisconsin, in Green Bay, in Wauwatosa. Students are being treated as members of a racial group, and that's legally and morally wrong.
So beyond that, the warning that was issued, and also the promise that Trump's Department of Education is going to withdraw funding. What are the implications to? How much money are we talking about? And is it? Do you believe that in the end, Jill Underly will capitulate and agree to adhere to what is being asked of them?
So in terms of the states, the money at risk, it's hundreds of millions of dollars. And what that means at the local level is something around 8% of a school district's budget, or even in some cases more than 15% of a school district's or independent charter school's budget. So that's a significant amount. They rely on these funds. It's going to hit the low-income communities the hardest. These dollars are really important to these schools and the services that they provide, and if they're cut off, it's going to hit them at the local level. And that's why I think our leadership here in Wisconsin they're failing these local school leaders. We've had school leaders reach out to us and say, what can we do? We need this money. We don't like this political risk that's being taken here. So what we've done is actually encourage school board members and school district administrators, charter school leaders to sign on to a coalition letter that we've circulated seeking the federal government for guidance and basically saying, listen, we agree with you and we do not discriminate based on race in our school or in our school district, and we rely on these funds. We don't agree that DPI refused to certify compliance. What can we do? And unfortunately, DPI has put these local school districts and leaders in a really difficult position.
So, what's your advice, Corey? What can the school districts do? What can school board members do?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think right now a lot is yet to be seen. We don't know exactly how this will play out, but that's why we're kind of helping coordinate an effort to merely seek guidance directly from the education department and create a record that schools are in compliance with this federal civil rights law prohibiting racial discrimination, that they're not using DEI programs or initiatives that are racially discriminatory. Um, we're happy to be a resource if anyone has questions, but I think right now, two things. We want to encourage them to directly reach out to the federal government as part of this coalition to seek guidance and try to see how they can secure their federal funding. And then the other thing I want to mention, and you and I have talked about this once before, is Will has a school board summit coming up on May 9th in Waukesha. And this, and as well as the brand new executive order on student discipline and classroom management, we're going to have both Wisconsin and national speakers talking about these topics.
So, for our listeners that want to encourage their school board members to attend, can you give more details? And I think, isn't the deadline at the end of this month, or maybe it's Monday?
Yes, Monday, April 28th is the deadline to sign up for the summit. So we have just a few more days here, and there are a few seats left. It's Friday, May 9th in Waukesha. It's a full day of professional development training on policy and legal issues, and it's for school board members, school leaders, school district administrators. Happy to have any of them join this training, and you can go right on the Will website, will-law.org, look at our events tab, and you'll find it and you'll be able to sign up. But we're going to really make sure that we're talking about these issues that, as they're developing, we'll have some updates at the summit as well.
So, again, for our listeners that have, you all reside in some school district, and it would be good information. So they can go out to will-law.org, and there's information that they could screenshot or click the link and send it to their school board members?
Yes, you'll be able to find it on our website. And you know what I will actually do, Meg, is I need today to go on my Twitter, and I'm going to share the link to sign up and the full list of speakers.
Okay.
So I will put that right on there to try to make it as easy as possible to see both what will be discussed, who will be there, and how can you sign up.
And just as a favor to me, tag the Meg Ellefson Show on there, so then
way
I'll repost it or whatever. I know I still use the word tweet, but old-fashioned Meg, I can't get over the whole Twitter term. So do you anticipate? I mean, I guess based on this behavior that we're seeing from elected officials throughout the country, I mean, even here in Wisconsin, do you have any kind of sense of optimism that Jill Underly is eventually going to comply? I mean, is it just a matter of she's testing the waters to see if what she can get away with, or do you really think that she's going to hold out and punish school districts in this state?
Well, I sure hope the local communities, local school districts are not the ones that are punished here, but unfortunately that's a real risk. And right now, it doesn't look like there's any indication by Jill Underly or DPI to comply. Like you mentioned, the deadline to return this was yesterday. I will note there was an injunction that is kind of may have delayed that. So if you're in a local school district, I don't think there's any imminent harm right now, but it's still real harm, a real risk of losing a significant amount of federal funding. And, too, you hear DPI and other advocates always asking for more money. We need more money, even though there's data that shows more money doesn't actually lead to higher proficiency and better outcomes. And now they have this stream of federal dollars that they're putting at risk for what? For what? It's a federal law that they should be in compliance with anyways. And this political risk and political posturing is just, it's the local communities and it's the students that would ultimately feel the impact, the negative impact. So I don't know exactly how this will play out. I would love to see DPI reverse course, but until then, since there's no indication that they plan to do so, we're happy to be a resource and help the local educational agencies, the school districts and charter schools, seek guidance and reach out firm compliance with federal civil rights law directly to the Department of Education.
Corey, it really is shocking that that the head of our education department here in Wisconsin would take such actions to risk harming not only, the public school districts, well, frankly, all all public and private schools, but to harm the students, because ultimately that is who will be hurt by the actions of Jill Underly.
It is. And one other thing I'll note, I listened in on a DPI webinar yesterday evening on the topic of funding, and one of the questions was about what is Title VI? What does it do? What was it intended to do? And unfortunately, our superintendent had a hard time answering that. She couldn't really say what Title VI was. She was kind of fumbling over her words, said she had to look it up, knew it had something to do with racial discrimination. But to have our leader of public instruction in the state unable to articulate Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and unabashedly say that it prohibits racial discrimination, that's troubling. It really is. And it kind of is telling. We know that DPI has been in favor of these DEI initiatives. It's right there on their website, and it's in the things that they say. But to treat individuals as individuals, it's just so basic. It's obviously required. It's morally right. And our leader here in Wisconsin doesn't seem to understand that, which is really unfortunate.
Well, and sadly, the reality, I hate to be the one to say it between the two of us, but she was just reelected. That's the worst part in all of this, is that it's just, it's so frustrating that we weren't able to get, more voting, really Trump voters out to the polls to ensure that we had a new leader in the Department of Public Instruction. And it
yeah,
showed too.
Wisconsin, right? Wisconsin families, they deserve better. I'm sure you've talked before about how Dr. Underly kind of lowered the standard, lowered the bars in terms of test scores and proficiency. So, there's a variety of things where Wisconsin kids, Wisconsin families deserve better. But this is the leadership we have, and we at Will, we're going to do the best we can to hold these government entities accountable and be a resource for folks at the local level. So we're going to do as much as we can on our end at Will.
Thanks for joining me this morning, Corey Brewer. I appreciate it. I hope you are able to enjoy your weekend with all your fleet of children, and look forward to our next conversation. Keep up the great work. I really sincerely appreciate it.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure joining you.
Thanks, Corey. Take care.